Hey Internet, I've got something to share with you today, which is one of the best ways I've found as a creative person working for myself of finding out how full of shit you are at any one point in your chosen profession. So if you are a creative and you create your own stuff, it's very, very easy to get lost in other people's projects or side projects or things that you need to do temporarily just to get by, and it's very, very easy to forget what you're trying to achieve and where you're trying to go. So if you're the type of person that has dreams and aspirations of doing something that isn't your kind of normal cookie-cutter university follow the tracks kind of profession, whether it's an entrepreneur, dancer, actor, writer, singer, etc., I found that this is one of the most useful tools for keeping me on track and also evaluating my life in general and making sure that I have some sort of balance in a career that is notoriously peaked and troughed. So it's very, very simple. The first thing that you need to do is take an average week of your life. So last week is the easiest, just something Monday through Sunday. And if it was a particularly odd week, then choose the week before. But what you want is something that, what your average week would look like. And take a piece of paper and draw on it just your days Monday through Sunday. And also divide your time into chunks, like your morning, your midday, your afternoon, evening, late night, etc. And divide it just so you've got a visual of the chunks of time or units of time that you have throughout your week. Now, in that, just write down what you do. Exactly what you did. No embellishment, just this is what I did on Monday in the morning, this is what I do here, this is what I do here. And in general, that's how I spend most of my time. And then, what gets rid of all the bullshit, once you've done that, even if you just imagine it in your head now, you can either pause the video and actually do it before I explain, which might help, or just get a good idea of what exactly you do in your head. And the goal is to see what the distance is between what you say you're doing or what you say you're trying to do and what you actually tangibly do. So if you had to take this sheet of paper with what you do on it and give it to someone that's never met you before and that has no idea why you're doing each of these things, and you're not allowed to explain a thing, you just have to give it to them and let them evaluate it and just look at that piece of paper, what would they say that you are? Just looking at what's on there, what would they say that you are, or what type of person would they say that you are? And you can evaluate it in a number of ways. It's useful for your social life, for instance. Like, looking at that, would the person say, this person has absolutely no time off? Would they say that the week looks intense? I found the first time I did this that I gave myself absolutely no downtime, and I was wondering why I was stressed all the time. And taking that time out just improved the quality of the life and the quality of the work that I was doing in all the other periods. Another thing that I noticed was that if someone looked at that externally, they would rarely see much family stuff in it. And as someone who's very family oriented, right, as much as I wanted to say that about myself, it wasn't apparent in where I allocate my time. Sure, the family knows that I care about them, but that's all well and good, but having a notion of someone caring about you is different from actually being there. So I started to readjust my week to make sure I had a certain amount of family time allocated. I considered myself an actor and a writer for a while because I made a lot of my income that way, but at no point was I doing any training of a morning, was I doing anything to keep that up. My average week involved a bit of acting, a bit of writing, but no one would say that this person is working extraordinarily hard to become what they want to be. And these are the type of realities that you have to face, and you can face by virtue of having them written down. And, like I said, just evaluating it from an external perspective, without explaining, oh, I'm only doing this for a little while because I'm X, Y, Z, or I'm only doing this, da-da-da. And it's true, you have to do those things all the time, but you still need the nuts and bolts of progress to be visible to someone outside of it. A lot of artists are like, oh, do I deserve to be this, or do I deserve to call myself that? Do I deserve to call myself a stand-up comedian? Do I deserve to call myself a dancer? It's like, well, if you wrote down what you do in an average week, and a substantial amount of it is your dance preparation or writing stand-up, etc., then it'll be self-evident that that's who you are. And once you've written down what you do, the next task is to write down what your ideal week would be. Like if you've noticed just in this video that what you write down doesn't fully reflect who you want to be known as. For example, if you're a person that considers themselves quite generous, but there is no time that you've allocated to doing anything for anyone else or visiting anyone else, then you have to call your own bullshit and say, I'm not who I thought I was. And that doesn't mean that you're not that type of person. It just means that you've let things get away. And so you draw up another week and allocate exactly how much time you'd like to spend to each thing. And a lot of it would be things that you've got that are pie in the sky in the future, like, oh, I've got this writing that I want to do, and I've got this that I want to do. And if there is no time in your week allocated to that, your week is unlikely to change. Because, as you'll notice with the average week, is in general you spend every week doing the same kind of thing. And so if you just flash forward for the rest of your life, that's kind of what it'll be like. If you're the type of person that's only doing a little bit of acting a week, then nothing's really going to change unless you get extremely lucky, unless you have time allocated to finding acting work. And this is the kind of thing that you can really start taking responsibility for in terms of getting where you want to go. So if you do want to be a writer, then how much of your time would be allocated to learning the skills of being a writer? How much would you need something at the beginning of every day that has writing in it? And just by virtue of writing that stuff down, you start looking at what your priorities are, and they'll become more aligned with who you want to be as a person, rather than who you've let yourself be just by virtue of not being 100% aware of who you are and where you want to go. So yeah, that's the first tool, and in my experience I do it every 3 to 6 months, and you'll always make mistakes. You'll think your priorities, like I forgot to put in downtime the first 2 times I did this, and by the end of a year I was exhausted, and I didn't know why until I did it for a 3rd time. I was like, maybe I should have a day off or something like that. Maybe I should allocate time to myself or time for something that just comes up. And just by doing that, you start subconsciously working towards that week. You can write down pretty much whatever you want in there, and if something on it's not happening, it's because you haven't allocated the thing or the time to get towards that object. Like if you've got something in there going, I want to be able to film something a week, it's like, well, have you got time allocated to organizing to have that thing filmed a week? Do you have the time that it requires to talk to other people that need to be involved in the filming of that? If you're a writer, do you have time, and you go, I have no inspiration, do you have time allocated to inspiration? So just using practical, tangible, self-imposed rules. Like, I'm not saying there's a particular way to do it, but just by your own virtue going, well, I don't look anything like the type of person that I say that I am, or think that I am. What do I need to adjust to be that person? Like, if you want to be someone who's a sprinter or something like that, like, you need to put hours of work in every single day. And once you start putting that in there, someone will look at it and go, wow, that person's training really hard to be a sprinter, or whatever it is that you may be. And if that same amount of time is allocated to acting, and then that person's trying really hard to be an actor. If that same amount of time is allocated to going out or whatever, it's like that person's an avid socialite. So I just found it a very useful tool that you can apply every 6 months to keep yourself on track and keep yourself sane, and decide by yourself whether you deserve the title which you want to apply to yourself. So I'll be doing these videos every week with just little things that have helped me gain some structure in what's arguably one of the least structured and, I think, difficult careers to build.